Welcome to Game Over Entertainment. This week on The Walking Dead Wednesday, we're talking about Wellington, this newly found community at the end of Season 2. So Wellington, I think, is going to have a very important role to play in the third season. I've actually mentioned this in a previous video, so that's why I think it's worth talking about this community and looking at it more in depth. Now, Wellington has been mentioned several times throughout the second season. The first time we hear about it is when Krista and Clementine are around the campfire, and Krista reveals that that is their destination. Before they get ambushed by the bandits, that's where they were going to go. Now, in Season 2, Episode 2, Kenny mentions that him and his group are headed toward Wellington because they have fresh water, a lot of land, and the walkers are very slow due to the colder climate. In Season 2, Episode 4, Amid the Ruins, Kenny also suggests that going to Wellington is their best chance of survival. And of course, in Season 2, Episode 5, if you choose to stay with Kenny, remain by his side, then you guys arrive at Wellington after the 9-day skip, where you meet Edith, and eventually we're presented with a choice whether to stay in Wellington or leave with Kenny. Now, one interesting thing that Edith said during this moment was that they were having an overpopulation problem, and if Clementine and Kenny would check back in a couple months, there may be some new openings, they may be accepting new members. So how do you solve overpopulation? By getting rid of people. Now, how does Wellington get rid of people? I'm not too sure about that. Maybe as a possible punishment. If someone breaks the rules, breaks a law in Wellington, what happens to them? Are they killed? Possibly, it may be dependent on the crime. Or are they exiled? I believe it's highly possible that people are exiled from Wellington, because you have to think, how did Krista and Clementine even hear about Wellington? Alright, there's no internet in The Walking Dead. There's no Walking Dead forums. There's no gossip. You know, it has to be from another fellow survivor who's actually been to Wellington. Now that we know that Wellington is a real place and not a fairy tale, these people have to have been there in order to talk about it. There are no signs and stuff on the street, Wellington this way. It's not like Terminus, at least I don't think it is. Terminus was a huge trap that drew people in, and the residents of Terminus used these new members as their food supply. Yes, they were cannibals. But one thing interesting about Wellington is that they're not pushed to that point that they have to do something like that. If they're in a position where they can actually give away food and medical supplies to anybody who passes by, and these guys have a lot of resources on standby. Alright, they're nowhere near close to run out of food or resources. So that's a pretty good thing to know, that they are well stocked and stuff like that. So I don't think it's anything like a Terminus. I think it's actually a very friendly community. In order to do that, who gives out gift baskets in the zombie apocalypse? Nobody. Some other things people have predicted about Wellington, saying that it would be like Alexandria, saying it would be like Terminus or Woodbury or stuff like that, places from the comic book. I don't believe that is the case. So one thing unique about this place is that it is actually made by Telltale. And we already know that Telltale does not like being predictable. Going in no set storylines the same as Alexandria, Woodbury, and places like we already know of, you know, would go against what Telltale does. So I think they're going to try something new and original right here. And I don't know who the leader is behind Wellington, but they must be a pretty smart person to actually build this place. Whoever made this place actually made it pretty well. It has a pretty good setup on it. They have enough resources and food and supplies to be charitable. To me, this leader of Wellington feels like a mixture of characters we've known in the past. Like, we have Lily's side of things, wanting to fortify the place, get some walls built up like she did with the motor inn, okay? That was her idea, to get those walls, people working on it, and so they will be strong and can withstand any walker attacks. Alright, if you guys haven't already, check out my Lily is the leader of Wellington video. I go into depth about Lily's character and why she could possibly be this leader of this new community. And then we got Walter, you know, and his generosity. He was giving food to Bonnie, saying that he has more than enough supplies. So we have that type of tendency with Wellington actually handing out supplies to survivors that pass by. Now let's briefly talk about the split endings we have once we arrive at Wellington. You know, whether to leave with Kenny or go inside Wellington. Now, if you stay with Kenny, I believe that we'll have some type of time skip in the beginning of Season 3, where Clementine will have spent this time with Kenny, and they finally actually got membership into the group, because now they're accepting new members. So now they're inside Wellington, they're living there, and we find out what's actually going on inside this new community. Now the other way, if we actually went inside Wellington, I believe that Edith is probably going to be the caretaker for Clementine and AJ. One of the reasons why I think she was allowed to get Clementine and AJ in Probably because she was willing to take the children in to her own home. We already know that food and supplies are not really an issue. The issue is spacing. There's not enough spacing. So she probably had to sacrifice a portion of her own private space in order for Clementine and AJ to get in. That's probably how she was able to make that deal. So with Edith as our caretaker, Clementine will probably be developing a better relationship with her as opposed to just being with Kenny and sticking with him the whole time. So Kenny may or actually still arrive later on. He can still come back in this scenario, but you won't have the relationship that you would have had with Edith in this way. And Clementine may actually be a little more hardened with the Kenny one, because she's spending more time with Kenny and the harsher conditions she would have living out in the wild, you know, looking for food, not knowing what's around every corner. And as far as the other endings of season 2, I just don't think they look very promising or very hopeful in that aspect. Clementine being alone with AJ, that one's pretty self-explanatory. I don't see any future in that one right there. We don't even know where Clementine is heading in this situation right here. But she still does know about Wellington. That's still in the back of her mind. So she may turn around and head toward Wellington. That's still there. So it's still a possibility of that. And also we got the Clementine and Jane ending. So in this scenario right here, it's been mentioned in the Carver storyline that herds have come through before. So when the herd came through, that wasn't the first time. So it's probably going to happen again. What are Clementine and Jane going to do when that happens to them? Okay, if Carver's place falls down, what is Jane's next plan? What are they going to do next? The only place they probably even know about is Wellington. That's still mentioned. It's still been mentioned several times in the back of their mind. So it's still there, even if they're not thinking about it. So that's why I think Wellington's going to be a key position that we're going to be in the premiere of the 3rd season. That is, as long as we are continuing with Clementine's storyline. Now let's take a quick look at this place and see what we're getting ourselves into right here. It looks pretty damn fortified, okay? People are going to have trouble attacking this place. They are having a problem with bandits or having war with other groups out there. I think that Wellington will have the advantage in this situation. The land right in front of Wellington is bare. No trees, no shrubbery, nothing. Okay, there's nowhere you can hide and we not see you a mile away. So they have that advantage. They can see people coming before they actually get there. Though the interior around the door is actually made up of boxcars, and that's the only way to get in. I don't think there's a back way out or anything like that. There may be one, but it's probably heavily guarded as well, just like the front. And you see the rooftops over here in front of the gate. Those are places where people can set up and actually, you know, have a standoff. If they were having a big war with another group, survivors would be up there, the Wellington people would be up there with their guns, and they would hide behind the sheets of metal while actually aiming their guns out the little pockets. So yeah, they have a really good setup right here, capable of defending themselves if need be. So that's why I think Wellington's gonna be a pretty key set place for the future. But everything's not perfect in Wellington. There are some potential problems that they could face. Overpopulation, as Edith implies, you know, that'd be an issue. You got too many people around. You know, if someone actually does become a walker, then it would be straight pandemonium because they live in such a tight community. And another issue you run into with overpopulation is problems with diseases. We haven't really dived into that topic in the Walking Dead game, but if anyone broke out with a flu or a cold or anything like that, it would spread throughout the community very quickly, especially if it's very contagious, you know, anything like that. So that could be a problem as well. Problems with the leadership or power struggle. To have a community like Wellington, you gotta have some pretty strict rules in order for these people to survive and keep thriving like they are right now, which can lead to some problems with the leadership, can lead to an uprising with the people if they think they are treated unfairly or the rules are unfair. Alright people, so let me know what your thoughts are about Wellington. Do you see this as some place we can actually arrive at in season 3? You think it's going to play a big role in the 3rd season? I do. I think Telltale's made this place for a reason. It just has a lot of potential for storytelling and stuff that's going on right here. We could possibly run into some very strange things within these walls as far as like how people operate, the rules they have for people living inside of the Wellington community. Okay, but thank you guys for watching and stay tuned for another Walking Dead Wednesday coming up next week. Peace out.